we're going live. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the fourth edition of the GeoBlocks Ask Me Anything. Today, again, with my colleagues, Sofian and Alisher from sunny Berlin. Wonderful to speak to you all. Today, we're going to have two sections. One is going to be more about the digital twin GeoBlocks project, and then at the end, we're going to have a market recap, a corporate recap, seeing what's been going on in the last week. Perfect. And actually, I wanted to have a quick start with something that I just spotted on our map, and I'll do a little transition here. So obviously, beautiful weather in Switzerland, or Austria actually, and it's the European Alps. One cool thing that I just spotted is that somebody from the C-suite at Qualcomm is definitely flying into continental Europe. So you can see here the private jet tracker that we have on the digital twin doing wonders. I like these kind of things because it really highlights the type of information you can get. And it's a good introduction to why we care so much about real-time data, about making out of data information that is useful to everyone. Cool. With that, maybe I'll just the group. You guys want to say hi? What have you been up to last week? What have you been looking at?
Yes, super happy to still be here on the AMA. The fourth one is really nice. I think last week was a bit quieter in the overall crypto markets, but obviously in our team we are very much on the finishing line for launching the Toro Rico collection. That's in 10 days. We've got something planned, planning on some food and beverages, a bit of guerrilla marketing. So stay tuned. We will announce the little launch event in the next week. Otherwise, I think we are really also finishing up now on the GeoBlocks launch. That's also coming our way, so we have a lot to do. We don't have any developers on these AMA so far, but I think it might be time that we get our CTO here on board to talk a bit through also maybe the more nitty-gritty of the GeoBlocks infrastructure.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we're going to have a brilliant conversation. As you say, there we are in the kind of late sprints, and our role is obviously to communicate to the world. So we are the bridge to our developer network, so to say. And we're here obviously to answer any questions. So please do use the chats, reach out to us, come to the Discord, use the Twitter. We are basically everywhere to speak to people, help them figure out what it means from a technology point of view, but also from the wider Web3 angle, the blockchain angle. To that tune as well, Sophia, I mean, I'm planning to also make a session where we basically go through the basic concepts, right? Because we talk a lot about super deep tech, and it's you lose a lot of people along the way because you cannot start from the foundations every time. So there's obviously a little bit of homework for people. I think my target audience for that is also just the investor community from like VCs, private equity, etc., who I think are really struggling to understand Web3 and the metaverse. Why? Because, well, they don't know about microservice architecture, clustering, deployments, Dockerization, Docker Swarm, Kubernetes, etc., right? Like, and that is obviously all Web 2. Right, but it's within the Web 2 cloud philosophy. There is a strong decentralization angle to it, and that is where Web 3 took its inspiration and said, well, why don't we not just decentralize the way that we orchestrate microservices in different servers around the world, right? Distributed computing, but how do we do it for the front end layer, which is the commerce layer, which is the interaction layer, which is a personal computing layer, etc., etc. So really, as you say, really exciting to also have a week where it's not pure drama, right? Like where it's not rock pulls or Do Kwon or implosion. A good recovery overall, but a good recovery just means the stock kind of selling off overall, and sentiment is like, okay, maybe now it's time to just focus on the utility, focus on what the technology is, and that's what I want to talk about to you today.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, even when crypto markets are quite, we have plenty to do because we are utility driven, and also talked this week, end of last week, with some really interesting partners across the board that are seem to be more than ever interested in what Web3 can bring to their business models. So I definitely agree with your overall analysis on market sentiment, but there is definitely this silver lining.
I fully agree. Let's talk a little bit about what we're trying to solve then. And this is really the problem as we, through 18 months of looking at the space, speaking to people, gathering feedback. Number one is the factual establishment that we are in the late stages of Web 2. Web 2 is still here and it will stay in some shape or form, but any type of new project that's coming now cannot look back and solve an issue that's or need in a way that we would have done it maybe 5 years ago. It needs to solve it how we want to do it in the next 5 to 15 years. So really what it implies is that you need to be an absolute master of Web 2. Having worked with large corporates, having worked on various industries on this subject and gathered feedback, it's certainly not the case that everyone has mastered Web 2. A lot of people are still stuck in Web 1, or a lot of people have forked out Web 2 into some sort of mishmash that is very bespoke, monolithic, and vertically integrated, not horizontally data mesh style integrated, which is what the big revolution is now. As we move into Web 3, the big buzzword obviously that's put Web3 on the map was Meta's move to create the metaverse or go into that direction, where we feel there's a strong kind of misconception as to what the metaverse is. And it's not that it's a misconception it's not bad, it's just that a lot of it is a natural evolution. Games were the first metaverses, right? We've all played computer games with in-game economies. I used to play GTA and you could buy shark cards, right? That's in-game currency. I don't know, you used to play, what did you used to play?
Oh, Dota. And also there you have all these aspects that I mean the the gaming community is definitely the one that spearheaded this revolution, just translating more in-game economies with a real vote also for the game structure. So for me, it's really a proof of concept. If it works for a game with large communities, diverse players, and if this is possible, then it is also ready for the real world and kind of leading us to this mixed reality. I think obviously, and here there's still some testing to be done. Is kind of the entire involvement of communities via decentralized autonomous organizations, which is central to Web3, and where we are also working on concepts, or the classic white paper. But for me, philosophically speaking, it's sounder to start with the utility. For games and in-game economy, it's the fun, the entertainment. We are obviously addressing a much wider type of utility, namely everything that you do in the real world. So also including entertainment and fun, but not only.
That's absolutely key. So the metaverse, as it's been portrayed so far, has been about games. It's 3D or 2D games, or in-game economies, or even activities. But what we're trying to do is to ground it in the real world, saying that, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, but the real world is probably the best place for everyone, right? Maybe that is the true problem that we're trying to solve, and essentially is how do we actually implement this? Right? How do you actually connect the real world to the virtual world? How do you enable that transition? How do you do in real time, and how is it scalable? I think that is the true problem we're solving, and it's actually not it's a fundamental problem of information technology that we're solving. But it articulates itself in a product, in a program, in use cases. And they are so fundamental, essentially, the way that we interact. It's the way that applications are interacting, data is interacting with the network. When a lot of the blockchain technologies have so far focused on how do the blocks validate and create transactions, we enrich them and say, okay, now the blocks need to be much more than just blocks, and that's why they're GeoBlocks. And with that, maybe if you fill in a little bit, I'm just going to close that window so that our audience doesn't hear the Berlin noises too much.
Yeah, sure. I think, I mean, just to reiterate on this aspect of Web3, ultimately, and this is the additional benefit of Web3 is that a lot of what we currently do also via Web2, all these bookings and the Groupons, coupons, and so on. That's just small elements of what Web3 and ultimately our solution can make more efficient, save money, and also give back more control of the data to the stakeholders in the transactions. So, for instance, for if you buy something, it's the customer and the seller that are ultimately in control of their data, and this is really something that we are leveraging from the Web3 technologies that I mean that are really becoming standards right now. Let's talk a bit about this kind of silent moves of that we saw over the last months later on. But I think this convergence in markets, but also in usage to certain platforms, to certain protocols rather, really is a strong benefit for the entire Web3 revolution.
Absolutely, and I think you mentioned for us Web3 is many things, but essentially it's a revolution on how marketing will be done in the future. Cookies-based marketing is dying. I think Apple doing the privacy moves, that is clear that it's a dying breed, which is. It's also driven by regulation. It's driven also just by technology, right? And what we're offering essentially is because it's a map-based, geolocalized-based type of platform, is the customer comes to you, right? Back in the day, back in Web 2 and then Web 1, you had to go and get the customer. The guy who likes Nutella, plays tennis, and drives a bike to work. That's how you would target your customers. Now you have to flip the coin, so to say, and the customer has to come to you because you're offering better products, more virtual experiences or immersive experiences, more convenience, right? It's about what the client wants first, rather than you finding someone who fits to your product offering. That is key, and I think a lot of people that we spoke to in the advertisement world and the map world have all said the same. Cookie-based advertising is a challenge. Maps offer a more forward-looking way to do this, and also the fact that you have Web3 enables also the consumer and the users to have full control and ownership of their data. That is the most important thing as well. So it will completely change the way CRM works, all these customer acquisitions. that is going to be a major revolution that's going to be going on. I think it's really, really important to understand that.
Yeah, for sure. And just maybe also to add to this, we are talking a lot about marketing aspects, obviously also because they are affecting us in our daily lives. There's a lot of regulatory change that has been going on, but ultimately, and that's also where we come in, the utility and the integration with be it sensors, but also any type of data, from flight radars to train data, but also CO2 CO2 level sensors, air quality sensors. Everything can be integrated in this wider platform. I mean, a platform as a word definitely is a bit has a bad reputation, I would say, in the
No, but it
Web3
could.
world.
It's just a. I don't like the word platform either. It's not a platform, and it's not an ecosystem. It's something that we need to come up with a word ourselves. I think platform is quite antiquated for that purpose. It
Well,
just
I think DAO could really fit really the idea behind it. Really have a free marketplace that is not owned by anyone, that is obviously operated by people in the background, and that also creates values, but in an inclusive way, because obviously we have the operators, but we also have the customer, the clients, the users of all these services, and these types of organizations, let's call them DAO for now. They really embody all this vision, and fit more the concept than the term platform for GeoBlocks ultimately.
No, I agree, and probably also for me, it's always been digital twin has been a more resonating term, because what we are doing is we're not a platform only lives virtually the most of the time, unless you receive the product, but the platform lives there all the time. Virtually, what the digital twin is, it admits that it's a copy, it's a replica of the real world, and with the pure intent of giving you the representation, the mirror image of what's going on. That is extremely important. Now, we might say, and that's one of I think the biggest challenges, or people making a challenge for themselves out of it, saying, yeah, but my hardware is very old, or my system does not support that. Look, we said that is always going to be true. We wanted to achieve this type of technology in a brownfield environment. So when we came and look at devices, we didn't think, oh, this is an ATH7501. We are thinking in terms of zeros and ones and binaries and protocols and data. And we make it so, and that's what the abstraction layer is within the wider concepts, and we'll talk about the different layers, the blockchain consensus layers and the abstraction layer itself. That's what it does. It basically handles every complication in the subsystem level. So anything that is below, anything that needs to be integrated, it breaks it down into its true essence, which are basically zeros and ones, or M-bus or CAN-bus signals, or whatever it is. And it converts it into a common data model. It's extremely important to stress this. People underestimate that anything that you want to do requires this foundation, which is any type of heterogeneous data needs to fit a common data model. If you don't have a data strategy within your organization, within anything that you're going to do, you're going to fail in the project downstream. And really, the success of any digital project you're building up, or the digital twin you're building, depends on you mastering Web 2, which is CMDs, data lakes, APIs, data dissemination via PubSub, message brokers, etc., etc. And this is where we come in and say, hey, we've mastered it. And what we're doing we're providing this digital twin as a service layer to the wider ecosystem. And that can be plugged into different places. It will reside mostly on geoblocks.earth, which fundamentally belongs to the stakeholders of geoblocks.earth, right? So it's a DAO by definition. The content, the use cases, the tools that will be provided to the DAO are also driven by the users. I'll give you an example. If we now cooperate with, I don't know, a large network of supermarkets, and they have a majority stake, so to say, in the platform because they have basically acquired and put their needs for the DAO forwards, they will have higher voting rights to say, oh, we want to have an integration of payments onto the platform. We want to have an integration of custom accounting systems, or so that we can show how busy it is in real time to our clients on the map. All these types of then use cases are articulated around the user need. Web3 is user-centric. It's decentralized also in the user needs, and hence why we take a step back and say, how do we address most of the user needs by providing fundamental technology that is modular and configurable to serve specific needs, and that's how we think we can serve best the DAO. Now, the solution I explained a little bit, but it's essentially that, and having that angle, it connects the real world to the digital dimensions. And what we are aiming to do is provide that data network that enables augmented reality in the future. We see the future going straight into augmented reality via a little bit of a swerve around VR, but that will remain kind of the gaming side of the world.
Yes, for sure. And maybe also to go back to the stake of users and owners. What is also critical to highlight is that obviously for GeoBlocks, data also has value. So contributing data also gives you value in the organization, in your ability also to shape services that are provided to everyone. I think a good comparison is Open Sky, for instance, or even Wikipedia. I mean, you have a bunch of contributors, be it from home with their satellites streaming data on air traffic, or from home sitting on their computer on Wikipedia, really pushing knowledge, in a way that humans already did back in ancient Greek times, and this all is not valued in a transparent way. So, I mean, depending on where you are, I think you have different stats. But if you are on Wikipedia, I can tell you that your contribution is essentially valued at zero. And this is something where Web3 can also empower anyone that contributes data to create to also reap more benefits and really also representation from the value they create.
I fully agree, but you can only do that when you have a system of accountability, traceability, and incentives ultimately. And what Web3 and what GeoBlocks are firm believers in is that contributions and high quality contributions should have high quality rewards. That is clear. I was listening, I mean, I'm a big TikTok fan, as everyone in the office knows. But one of the biggest criticism is if you have a lot of followers on TikTok, you're spending a lot of time doing that, but you're not monetizing. You're going to get very little. I think it's a KSI, one of the biggest YouTubers out there. He has millions of followers on TikTok, millions of likes, millions of views. And I think he makes less than 2,000 per month on this, or I think it's a ridiculous number, but it shows you clearly that these types of, they spend a lot of time, they spend a lot of effort contributing to the network, and clearly gets rewarded by the network for providing good data and good information, good content, but gets nothing out of it. Web3 says, well, now we can trace that. Now we know also exactly what's going on within the revenue streams, etc. We can reallocate that directly to your crypto wallet or in fiat payment to you, contributor X, Y, and Z. And Wikipedia, as you say, is one of the best examples. If you are able to, transparently reward people for contributing great data, you are moving into the right direction for real and true democracy. I think that's why it's so important to us.
For sure, and it's my belief that here we are still talking about deep tech. So Sami already gave you kind of the bird's eye view on our data based tech. But obviously also the blockchain implementation, the securitization of digital assets is also something that is part of our offering, and where we leverage exactly all these data structures, our secret sauce, I would also say, in terms of processing and preparing data to allow really anyone to access the blockchain ledger and the bankability, yeah, that kind of comes with having assets secured, but also contribution or performance secured on a blockchain. We want to enable anyone to reap the benefits of this new tech.
I agree. I think so. What the reason why I emphasize so much what we've done in the data space, in the digital twin space, is really to showcase how strong we are with complex, massive data systems. And as soon as you start talking about blockchain and have the vision of serving the real world, you need to have that power, right? Then benchmarked against what we've looked at out there, we are very, very strong. And yet we have not seen a digital twin as powerful as ours, as customizable as ours as well. And you know, we've been out in marketing this for a year now. We've seen large companies striving to have these types of, you know, powerful solutions. But that's why we're so confident that we can serve the blockchain with assets. Now, I'll give you a short preview. What I mean by that is, you know, we believe that fleets and assets all around the world can be put into a blockchain, and we firmly believe Polygon is the one that will provide the best solution for assets trackability as tokens. And when I talk about assets, it's your bus, it's your train, it's your airplane, it's your satellite. It's pretty much anything that is a real world identity that needs to be connected to a network. And look, I think also the cool thing about blockchain, which people don't realize, is if the internet is gone, blockchain's still there, right? It's the decentralization of that, right? If all of the Google and I'm sorry to take that example, data centers fail at the same time, you know, the blockchain still exists, right?
And that happened, right, with Google, I think last year.
Oh yeah, it did in December, and nobody had email access. Yeah.
And one, I think you had stories of people locked in their home, not being able to turn off their lights and so on. So definitely already shows major operational risks that we are facing in the very centralized Web 2 world we are living in.
I agree. I put in now the slide because we've talked a lot about metaverse not being a game. We do have a little bit of explanations around that. You know, we see the world and GeoBlocks moving around 6 different dimensions. And it starts with the personal dimensions, I will call it, which is your personal visualization layers or immersive experience you want to experience yourself. But it goes over to the more wider, you know, interactive spaces. It's social, it's commercial, and then to the infrastructure part, which is industry and our earth ultimately. And we see strong aspect of sustainability being supported across all these dimensions with these technology. Now, one thing about sustainability I want to mention, we are firm believers that clean code will save the planet. The amount of badly written code that is out there is really, you know, causing CO2 emissions to rise. So I love it. And we're going to have a conversation with our CTO about this as well. You know, clean code, if you can write it in one line, you should write it in one line and not have, you know, your loop functions or whatever it is, because every character you put into your code is energy consumed. So here, these various dimensions, and they articulate themselves into use cases to bridge the gap and say, hey, I want to create new virtual products. Every time you buy my handbags or my whatever it is, you get this NFT which provides first the provenance, it's originating from here. I can do it on the fly as a commerce in a small shop, right? I don't need to do anything complicated. It's very easy to do and very easy to generate on the fly Polygon NFTs. To create this type of online receipt. And from that, you can have an array of marketing use cases, right? A customer acquisition, customer retention, new offerings, right? But when you move away from that and you say, hey, I want to do, well, I'm just going to choose one. I want to monetize contributors or incentivize contributors, right? This is the platform that we talked about it, right? This is the platform that you want to choose, connecting people with places, etc. So that's extremely important for us, and it's enabled by connecting devices and people to that DAO structure. I have one more slide I wanted to share, which is the it's more putting everything into perspective with regards to why we believe it's augmented reality and what we've done. First, I think the biggest proponent who's been vocal about this late April was Evan Spiegel, saying that people love the real world. It's all about augmented reality for them. That's the big bet they're taking, and really they don't see people wanting to replace the best thing in the world, which is the real world, with VR. And so that gave us an idea to kind of map out where do the different companies stand when it comes to VR, MR, and or AR. And clearly you have Meta on the full left. You know, they're full believers in VR. That's why they've invested billions already into. We've got PlayStation, Sony, HP. A lot of the kind of gaming companies are going to be full players in VR, and we left a few out, of course. But most importantly, we put Microsoft closer. So Microsoft and Amazon are clear believers in mixed reality. They see applications on both sides of the spectrum, but Microsoft is tending recently to be a lot more AR than VR. VR was 5 years ago for them. With Xbox gaming, etc. Now it's HoloLenses, it's industrial application, business applications in there. Augmented reality, mixed reality is really the way to go. And then you have a huge area of companies that are popping up now saying, hey, we're going to do AR. And I think Samsung has been one that's been quite vocal, and the glasses are clear extensions of the mobile phone, and it's a huge market. Snapchat, as we just discussed, Alphabet, also with the Google glasses, they've done a first attempt. It didn't work well. They kind of pulled it out, but I think, they were 10 years too early, right? It was 2012 when they came out with this. It's 2022 now. That is probably the right time to bring it. And then today, I think there was some news. Something is happening with Apple. Something. Yeah. We don't know.
It's the word on the streets. A lot of teasing, I think, ahead of the developer conference next week, where everyone is waiting for the Apple AR augmented reality concept. And since through their reputation and really designing ways of doing, everyone has their eye on them. I mean, as Sami mentioned, it's not something new, but now is really the time in terms of market penetration, since our mobile devices also have just leaped in performance. The capacity, the computing power just is at the critical point now to really allow an AR product, so be it glasses, headset, or anything else that's really up in the air right now. It will allow it to really be marketable.
Maybe I'll recap everything we discussed. So digital twin crossed over with the blockchain is where we think there is a massive opportunity. We have plans and we have the technology, and we're going to roll it out as GeoBlocks gets rolled out to merge digital twin to the Polygon blockchain, and we see tremendous opportunities for that space. And I'll give you two couple of news. One, obviously, a project by co-founder of Foursquare, raising 4 million to build a prototype of what they call living cities, which I haven't seen anything yet, but reading through what they're putting out, it sounds like they've been sitting with us in our office. But it's literally exactly that, connecting the digital twin in real places to mirror the world in virtual. This is what GeoBlocks has always been about. This is what Yotl has been about. And, we've got 18 months of research and development and industry expertise with leading, railway companies and infrastructure companies to aid us through that R&D process. So we've made major achievements on that front. But I thought that was quite interesting to see another player entering on that front. Obviously, there are a few other virtual land plays, etc., but we are differentiating ourselves very much from them. And then super exciting for us. Air Baltic, we've talked a lot about internally, but for us, it's clearly one of the most advanced companies when it comes to the blockchain. They've been one of the first ones to accept Bitcoin, the first airline 100% to accept for Bitcoin as payments, and they're teased now with their POC, so to say, internal, but it's called Planies. It's 10,000 NFTs, and the idea being really to tie this up to a frequent flyer program, the Air Baltic Club, to add the utility to it. And here we have obviously a lot of expertise and experience into what can be done, because we've dealt with the issue of digital twins and data integration on this massive scale. So we really think that it is a beautiful example of what is possible with NFTs once you've mastered all these types of layers. Right, shall we have a little segue to what's been going on? Obviously, we talked a little bit about the news, but Sofian, how about you give us an update on what you've been looking at over the course of the week?
Yeah, I think definitely a lot of news flow that is relevant for anything blockchain related. I think my personal highlight is Fidelity Investments accepting Ethereum for custody as digital assets. So what that means is that US individuals will be able to hold Ethereum-based contract just like Bitcoins in their 401k. So that's a huge thing for anyone who's not aware of this investment schemes. It's the Roth IRA. The average size of a 401k in the US is 120,000 USD, and pretty much everyone has it. That's just a game changer, I would say, for Ethereum. It's first of all sets it at par as an investable asset to Bitcoin, so the pure crypto blockchain. What is super interesting to us is obviously that once Ethereum contracts are accepted as custody by investment firms, it will also just increase the investor base a huge amount. And a first for Ethereum compared to Bitcoin is that it will obviously also allow digital assets. So just like our own GeoBlocks, digital assets will also become investable like other alternative asset classes. So that's huge. That's the news from the US. In parallel,
So you were telling me that you could hold your GeoBlocks in your 401k.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Exactly.
And this is the beauty, exactly, right? This is what I think so many people are struggling with, to understand that the network has value. And that's a major revolution that's going to shift, it's going to shape the next 25 to 50 years. It's a major revolution. It's as big as the internet. It's the realization, the collective realization that the network, the infrastructure we build and what's in there is worth something besides just money. And I know, you know what, for me, non-fungible token, the non-fungible, ultimately the Bored Apes are fungible in a way. They do trade, right? a little bit, right? Like it's for me, I'm struggling with the NFT.
No, I think, I mean, it's all non-fungible because it's unique, and you can't really change it. They trade, but I think what is kind of the key here, and digital assets, is it's the same Ethereum contracts, so the ERC 721, as NFTs. NFTs are just very much associated to these vast collections of pictures that look the same. So I know what you mean. They are kind of fungible because, as a trader, as a market maker, I know, like, basically you trade it as comparables. So it would be like two bonds from different utilities. It's two different bonds, but you are directly trading them, based on attributes.
So
So that
that's exactly my point, right? Coming from a bond trader world, I look at these NFT collections as issuance, right? With a specific volume, with a specific parameters, covenants, etc., utility, and you name it. But there is a certain liquidity, and there is also a certain value in having it. And similar to commercial papers and front end liquidity being cash equivalent, right? Which implies fungibility. I see these types of projects. It maybe we will get into a world where there's going to be an articulation, but once we draw these types of parallel, I think you understand a little bit, because a lot of people, I think, associate, oh, you just buy something and then it's there and it will never do anything, and that's why I have a little problem with the non-fungible, right? Because it's a negative term when actually it's a content activated token, right? It's a CAT for me, right? It's a content activator token, or something like that.
Yeah, and I think that it's all part, and I think it fits well with the saying that innovation is always overestimated in the present, but underestimated in the future. That's really what kind of also drives this controversy on NFTs, because obviously the cyberpunks, the bored apes, they sold, and they are selling for a lot of value that just for the normal human doesn't relate to the intrinsic value of the product. But this is kind of the overestimation part. But right now, and looking at overall valuation in the crypto space, right now, I would say we are definitely underestimating it, the impact of this type of innovation. So the blockchain tech for the long term. What I think is really key is maybe also to move from this NFT term back to the real term, the smart contract. And if you talk contracts, you are directly, in legal terms, also covering assets. You are covering transactions. So it's really, a full legal economy that is being created. And again, I think here Polygon is very interesting, and also very clear in their thinking, and really reaping all the market of Ethereum layers. So that means layers that allow users to transact at lower gas fees than the current Ethereum virtual machine. And they are providing soon enough also private blockchains. So where a corporation, or even a family, an individual, can just run their own blockchain and reap all these business and also legal benefits, transparency benefits in all types of different settings, that are just not only these NFT collections that were super hyped last year, that now definitely took a toll in terms of valuation. But it's obviously also linked to the macro environment, and that is beyond Bitcoin. Look, JP Morgan this week came out and reiterated that Bitcoin is still their preferred alternative assets, so as an investment asset. I think with the news now coming from Fidelity Investments, a huge player in the US, will also imply that Ethereum will be looked at at par. And so I just see a lot of possibilities. I also see, and that's where we are currently positioning ourselves, the Polygon chain as a sustainable and efficient blockchain implementation is really gaining traction.
Fully agree. So, as a recap of all we've said, it's about going back to smart contracts. That is the true term, ERC 721 or whatever it is, but it's a smart contract, and that should be leveraged for the real world. And it's so much more than just a picture. It is so much more than just a picture. I think there's one thing that you mentioned that we're gonna talk also with Vasan, which is the public-private chains, and we have one of the inventors of goblet theory, which is how you think about data around spheres and how each point around the sphere opens up like a goblet into a different sphere. So that's the visualization of how you then handle these types of matrices of the information. But super interesting. Do you want to talk about maybe briefly what happened on the Polygon bridges, on the DEX volumes? If you have a small update on that front.
Yeah, sure. So let's maybe take the monthly view. May was ups and downs, but surely a lot of volumes. So that's always super for any trader out there. But at the same time, what we are seeing, and that also goes for investment banks and the public. The low valuations, the lower valuation on crypto markets were definitely taking advantage of. So we have a lot of projects that are being launched. So, for instance, the USDT, so the tether-backed stablecoin that now also runs on Polygon. It's the largest stablecoin by market cap. It is also backed, although not fully one-to-one. Personally, I do not see this as a big game changer for the Polygon chain, since it already has the USDC, which is also backed one-to-one. So USDC run by Circle, and also backed one-to-one by hard cash. So these are all developments that are advantages for the wider DeFi system. Although, and again, here we are at valuation levels that just make non-financial activities, such as digital activities, really worth deploying on the blockchain. The DeFi, I mean, it's not a type of game with really also different risks. If we talk about the month of May, we have to talk about the Terra Luna collapse, the evaporation of a lot of money here, the Terra being having been the third largest stablecoin, but an algorithmic stablecoin, so not backed at all. That was definitely hurting the wider crypto and blockchain segment in the beginning of the month. Regulators also push back. I think that's really interesting to kind of also see the disconnect between regulators and private sector here in the communication. Like we talked about Fidelity, that is a highly regulated institution, really close, being highly interested in expanding their footprint in the crypto space, but at the same time on the EU side, conditioned, I would say, by the algorithmic stablecoin Terra Luna. We had really pushback on crypto. I think something along the line of saying, so Christine Lagarde from the ECB saying that crypto has no value and is purely speculative. Yes, in cases they are. Luna is a full example of it, but it's nothing that is particular or restricted to crypto. It's as a financial professional myself, everything that tells you that you can have a 20% return per year by signing up and just providing liquidity is just has scam written all over it,
Isn't
and
it,
there.
it's always the 20%, right? I mean, Bernie Madoff, that was also 20%.
Yeah, it's definitely more. It's not crypto products. It's just like this old snake oil sales techniques. So really more working on perceptions rather than actual value. And here, a lot of people got caught off guard on Terra Luna because I think, and that's a bit also the problem with crypto. There's a lot of funding, for instance, for these Terra Luna ecosystem projects. There are a lot of words in the white paper, but there is no value, and that's I think also something where I come out of this month with, where we are with GeoBlocks definitely making the difference and showing there's utility first. Don't place your money into something where there's no utility and no value. So yeah, I would say we have to talk about it. They also tried to relaunch. They had still enough kind of investor base or credibility with individuals that there was some trading activity, lots of volatility on the Luna 2.0. But at the end of the day, I think yeah, it's just another investment Ponzi scheme to really put it as easily as possible. Obviously, they have their white paper written in LaTeX that impresses a lot of people, but that's something I don't know. It was possible to do this 20 years ago. So at the end of the day, no surprise there. Still, a lot happened structurally, I would say. And here we are really seeing public firms being contended with decentralized exchanges, so public firms such as Coinbase and Circle, so centralized exchanges that had strong competition from the decentralized exchange, such as Uniswap or 1inch. Uniswap is the big player with like 70% of all transaction volumes. And here, May, through this portfolio shift away from algorithmic stablecoins to be it crypto or even fiat, these decentralized exchanges really were able to take a lot of steam. I think Uniswap had an all-time high of daily transaction volume and crossed the 1 trillion aggregate transaction volume mark this month. And this clearly also was noted by investment banks. So now we're also hearing from some major investment banks trying to tap into future exchanges or for crypto investments and so on. So in terms of investments and flows, May was definitely hard, but also hardened the crypto segment. You always have selection phases when there are new products, but clearly Bitcoin, Ethereum, and also a number of stable coins have come out ahead, I would say, of May, and taking advantage of consolidation. So let's see how June goes. Personally, I think we will see a bit of a reversal on smart contracts slash NFTs. We call them smart contracts now. So smart contracts where obviously, since they are based denominated in cryptocurrency, they lost a lot of value and are a bit lagging in terms of recovery right now. but I would say that this the smart contract space will also take on steam over the next week.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that update. What resonates with me is really that silver lining that you're giving for the overall space. And again, having spent a lot of time in banking at Goldman, at Deutsche Bank, seeing these types of volume going through really should be an alarm bell for those market maker exchanges and banks to look at the market, right? I think what my key takeaway from May is, okay, we've probably halved the market cap of all cryptos, a little bit less, but it's still a $1.2 trillion market with 100 billion liquidity on any given day, and that's in dollar terms. That is not something that you just throw away and dismiss, as much as I think the European regulators have done on various occasions and various levels. That is not the way we think the humanity should move forward. When facing a promising technology, we should have constructive conversations. Obviously, regulation is needed, but there are opportunities for everyone. And my personal call, if you're going to make a call for June, I'm going to make a call for the next 5 years. I think we're going to see some of the tier 3, tier 2 banks struggle, because there's going to be an entire new DeFi market that is going to attract also money away from the fiat market. And I'll have a little quote from the ESMA chair, Verena Ross, who said, very sanguine, saying, inflation is rising massively, which means that investors and normal people are going to look somewhere else to get their return and get their money back, right? When you have 8%, 10% inflation, and 8% in the European space, that is massive. That is something that hurts everyone. And if I can, allocate some of my resources somewhere else where I don't lose that much that quickly, and maybe I can compensate over the, medium term, long term, then really you're going to see a massive shift on the consumer base in the way that interact with money, seeing it as just another product now in a wider context of financial products. Awesome. So thank you so much for today's session. We are everywhere. So do reach out. We are on Twitter, we are on Discord, we are on YouTube, we are on Instagram, we are on TikTok. So there is no excuse for you not to get in touch, ask your questions, get involved. The projects, as we mentioned, the most important one is obviously GeoBlocks, that's coming here in June. So ask us your questions around this, how you can get involved, how can you integrate your shop or your concepts onto that platform. We have the NFT launch with Toro Rico, which is really going to have that arts and technology meets aspect. So there's a really exciting time as summer is coming. It's not all about the movies and blockbuster movies. There's going to be some blockbusters made out of here in the Web3 space, and that's going to be GeoBlocks. So thank you so much for signing up, and have a wonderful week. See you guys.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.